ra cha che che wa dang ne tu ne ra wa dang dong ba zhe che po song po je je zha she ten de re de le yo je 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 me do zhang zhe ra ren de nian de jian ba de san men de bo ba yin men de guo nan da jian ba zhe ai shu Ango ra ra na men de la ga ne ya da ya ye me san je jo da zo je jo na chang jo ba do da ne ja zo da ge je jo je da je lo la ben je san je ro ba shu san je jo na zo je jo相交八多当年交出去，当年去学这边弄的，罗本这三年做过学三年学到这些学那么，相交八多当年交出去，当年去学这边弄的，罗本这三年做过学。관계 도된 예래서네 따와던 예 담배제라 담배주네 동 고동만 될라자들로 관계 소변이 따와던 예 담배제라 담배주네 동은 되베 고동만 될라자들로 고동만 될라자들로 고동만 될 자들로 고동 될라자들로 와야다 탑잘라나 매바 하는 비예지 마게 샘지 탐지에 돈도 양답으로 또 산지지 공부하는 보지 진내 파버려 자. 대토바 잡에 쳐도 NP에 잡에 송랄 탐지에 내도 봐. NP에 장주 남제는 봐. 세년배 끊어 근저지는 받는 샘바리 휴.
In the beginning, I would like to advise all of ourselves to take a moment and cultivate the highest level of motivation. We call it bodhicitta motivation, or the altruistic state of mind, seeking enlightenment for the benefit of all other sentient beings. And with that kind of motivation, we should participate in this Lamrim teaching, teaching on stages of the path enlightenment that brings together the essential points of practice.
어디야 되는 거 나도 산자 담배 취지 탐니니 람링 사동 점모 제 애니 가지니마티 흉담네마 휴레스.
So today we are going to continue discussing where we left off in this Lamrim section on what we called special insight or Hlakthong Vipassana.
제부터 다 대송도가 되는 마 샤비스나 란조데 강테란게 메버 똑베스 야트는 마 송도가 샤비스나 대 참여러 같이 란조 샤비스로 시스 강테란게 메버 똑베네 따와 되니 콤베스 돈데 모습도 똑바 똑베 거네 란게 띠 NP게 란게 주로 만나야 NP게 랑게 주트반나비 투나 탐제 있는 독배나 춘이 된 모습도 차비 최제 소소데 미믹배 쓰기야 다 text기야다 대송도가 가르송도잖아 대송도가 되네 마 딱 좋은부터 이네마 각자 인피게 탑총아 각과세야 딘바 대안을 알고 각자 샤버지 각자 탑 충이도 없지 가야 된다 동대 망고지 마 파도 망고지 말 체리로 체. 다 강게 됐어. 강드데 라시 메브라톡베 따와 티니 콤베스 당보 라시 메브라톡베 그 떡니 그 땀트 아니 티 투중기 시랍게 디네야 아니 비게 제 쌈중기 제 아니 라시 메베 그 따와래 콤바제 송게였다 콤베 감담질라다 쌈중기 값을라 티니 무슨 또요 말이 티니 예 돈지 투지 또게 떡바게 대지수 대 콤베 안 티니 무슨도 떡베 아니 비게 무슨도 떡베 모르니 아래 콤베 무슨도 떡베 모르니 라시도 메 라시티 메신도 라시도 또 나위 아니 비게지 주나 탐제 떡베나 주니데 무슨도 잡이 주진 소소추 데 미믹베스 다티네 야손이 야야체네 고민도 무슨도 또 그래 주니도 무슨도 또야 무슨도 또베 모르텔라 아니 비게 추진 뉴콜라 소바이나다 폼바이나다 까와이나다 다가란도 추진 간데 숨바이나야 추진 때미게 말이 무슨 또 버티 세인다 돈지섭에 대해 초다 추진이 버티 비게지 미기리스 임바이나야 동데 무슨데야 겁내야 무슨 또 윤도 발라 아니 디 추진 숙소 가리네 꼰도베 주디 미게 말이 송도가 돼 추진 아니 가리서도 미게 말이 지난게 추남 라시아 메브라톡 바니 오리 미게 말에스는 소리 다 추데도 미믹 베스 어디지 기로지
So we are in the third volume number 3 in English translation of the Great Lamrim text on page 200 and it is the second big paragraph from the top and the paragraph begins with the sentence by accustoming yourself to that view which knows the absence of intrinsic nature, you will know it by perceiving it, and so on. And Khensur Rinpoche has explained that how for quite a while we have been discussing different points of view that schools have presented forth in terms of identifying what is the object of negation. And so we deal with this under two main headings, if you will. One is that one has not identified the object of negation adequately, so not enough, right? And another one is one has gone too much, it's the overestimation of the object of negation. So for a while we have been discussing different points of view, and we have seen the refutation of those views, which all come under this main, this heading, that you have not identified adequately the object of negation. Okay, and so what happens is, things appear to our perceptions as intrinsically existent. So we receive, if you will, this appearance of intrinsic existence, and it is this where our perceptions are mistaken. Okay, that kind of appearances are mistaken appearances, tulnang in Tibetan. Okay, and so in order to, counteract these appearances, if you will, what we need to do is first we have to educate ourselves about what emptiness is, shunyata is, or sunnata is. So this is where, first we listen to expositions or teachings on emptiness as reality. And this is how we develop the first level of wisdom that arises from listening to the teachings, right? Teachings in this particular case is about emptiness or emptiness. And so once we have some kind of understanding of emptiness, then now we engage in what we call the contemplation or reflection, samba, right? So in contemplation, we use analytical contemplation, if you will. So we analyze, how and why things are empty of intrinsic existence, by employing all kinds of analysis and reasonings. Yeah. So through this kind of analytical contemplation, Tibetan word is samba, that we are able to deeply penetrate the nature of emptiness, and we develop this kind of certainty of our understanding or ascertainment of what emptiness is. Yeah? But at this level still, even if we have really precise understanding of emptiness, it is still very intellectual understanding. It's what we call conceptual understanding. Conceptual understanding always comes with how the image of emptiness and the real emptiness, they come in a mixed form. In other words, we are seeing emptiness through the mediation of the image of emptiness, and that's called generic image. The Tibetan term is called Tenzin. We are not seeing the emptiness nakedly and directly. We are seeing it through the veil of this conceptuality, conceptual image of emptiness. So now we really need to do meditational practice, so that we are able to, as if we can lift off or remove these conceptual images or the conceptuality, and through this process, we can directly perceive emptiness as it is. So this would be what we call non-conceptual realization of emptiness. So this has to come through meditation, the wisdom that arises through meditational practice. Remember, we talked about the importance of cultivating these 3 levels of wisdom in a sequential order. The wisdom that arises from listening to teaching, wisdom that arises from the contemplation, and then the wisdom arising from the meditation, right? These are all in a sequential order. So once we realize emptiness directly, non-conceptually, negatively, that means the conceptuality that mediates our experience of emptiness is removed. It isn't there between emptiness and us. Okay? So at this stage, things don't appear to us as intrinsically existent. For that mind of ours, which directly perceives emptiness as it is, things do not appear as intrinsically existent. So that those mistaken appearances are gone, if you will. Not only that, when our mind is directly perceiving or realizing emptiness, there is no conventional appearance of phenomena for that mind. Conventional appearance such as forms or vase or pillars, whatever you want to name it. What we see is nothing but emptiness. And for that direct perception of emptiness, conventional realities do not appear. Okay.
What 제비 인다다 대성도가 주인공은 제비 시바테니 소소 믹스 그러다 소소 미김도 숨어봐 되게 미김 매비 미김 말봐 다음에 티 미믹나 아니 비게 제 녀고이나다 가리치 동이나데 대공순 또뭐 대체 아니 제게 동시 때다 동년이부터 제 체주도 두두 예고 받당 대연나 최전다 준이 있으니 비게 제 예고야 될로 무슨 대기 그래 배잖아 대기 그 말이스 무슨 대 최전 가리지나다 대 준이 동시 최전데 비게 가르쳐다 이 자주도 가르쳐다 제기 체적 쪽에 자주 될로 동영으로 또 별로 대기 그 말이스 그래 내 성도가 대답을 춘이다 최전이 로 대응어는 매베스 로 대응어를 믿고 동영으로 또 별로 대응어를 최전티 민두 그래야 제기 체적도 잡을 때 민두 그래 매베 대니로 대니 춘이다 최전 저번에 탄입에 로현지 그 뭐네 야고서 탄인도 그 로스는 똑바로 해요. 똑바로 줄 똑바로 왔다 똑바로 열어 봐. 탄인도 그 로스야 돼. 로스에서 똑바로 탄인도 그 강사예요. 그래. 어야 디니게 체기 추진자부터 동인고 좀 똑바로 다 도도럽잖아. 저 듣게 말해. 디톡 체기 체주도 적바디 애니 탄인도 그 로현지 저 그래 신는 송바래.
So, Khensur Rinpoche is still explaining that same paragraph here. And so for that mind has to be identified as the direct perception or realization of emptiness as it is, right? So there is no mediation of a conceptual image in this particular case. You're seeing emptiness and nothing else, okay? And it does not receive appearance of intrinsic reality. It does not receive even conventional appearance as well. So there is no dualism here. Okay? So then, what about, earlier we talked about how emptiness is established on the basis of a phenomenon. which in this translation is called substructure, right? And for example, we use the example of a form. Form is the basis upon which its emptiness can be established. So there is a relationship between form and its emptiness, right? Kind of a very intimate relationship, you know. So what mind can establish that kind of relationship between form and its emptiness, or emptiness and form? It's not that mind, because that mind does not see the form or any other conventional phenomenon. So what establishes the relationship between any phenomenon and its emptiness is another, what we call, conceptual state of mind. The Tibetan term is called Dakpa. The thoughts or the conceptual, right? The thoughts involve the use of the terminologies and the images. Okay? So when we name something and when we try to establish the connection between two things, so it is not that direct perception of emptiness that can make that connection. It is conceptual thinking or the conceptual perceptions that can establish the relationship between form and its emptiness, or a sprout and its emptiness. Okay.
어디 와현식 조리체. 다들 가서서는 대다로 통탐배. 담반에 랑경고 저바 탐제 시위 띵도 라신 메신도 데레나위 튜난고 저바 탐제 땅 에니 넘버 로바탐란 적배 데케 랑자 랑경고 저베 라신 케랑고 봐. 가나요 송그래. 가나고요 송그래 봐. 가 제탄 다 종이 똥이 되는데 간데에서는 대다로 통탐배 담바. 똥이 대 간데에서는 랑경고 저베 아니 요 말아 똥이 코랄라 랑게 ngō 가서 그 다지 담발도바 암랑게 팅도바 랑을 도바 요 말아 봐. 도바 탐제데 제버리지. 돈이 코란티. 디 띵도 에네. 디 띵도 라시 미신도 라시 에피에 라시도 나위 에네. 투난 그 도바 탐제장 에네. 넘버 로바탐 조그레스 다 똥이 띵이데 라시 마주 빈도 라시 도바 나위 되게 비슷하다. 똥자다 다 가르쳐다. 나와 매번 똑배 아니 피게 나와서 현반 매번 똑배게 아니 다른 조그리 똥이 등이지 된 조그리 근데 된 조바지 삼지 아니 피게 대케랑 받삼게 랑게 모두베 랑 팅이 좀 마음 랑게 모두베 된주 담버도 받지 계랑 갈고 그거 말이 송바리
So in the next paragraph, it begins as this is so, an ultimate truth is posited, where in addition to the stealing of all elaborations of essential existence, there is also a sheer stoppage of all elaborations of mistaken appearances of intrinsic existence where there is none, and so forth. Now, Khensur is explaining that particular statement here. So then what is emptiness? What is ultimate reality? What is ultimate truth? Paramattha Satya in Sanskrit, right? Emptiness is that which is free of all the elaborations. The Tibetan term is called treba. Treba is the fabrications. Okay? So emptiness is that which is free of all fabrications, elaborations. And that certainly include, appearances of intrinsic existence. Yeah? Nothing exists intrinsically in and of itself, but we project that kind of reality onto the thing, and then that thing appears to us in that mode. Okay? This is a fabrication. This is an elaboration, treba in Tibetan. Emptiness is free of that elaborations, or those elaborations, if you will. Okay? So which means, we don't have to posit intrinsic reality in order to establish emptiness. As a matter of fact, emptiness is free of intrinsic realities. Remember, in other positions, this is my footnote, right? They think that there has to be intrinsic reality, otherwise there cannot be ultimate truth, But we are saying that it's just the opposite, There is no intrinsic reality, but emptiness exists, and that is the ultimate nature of all phenomena.
특세를 아니 가르쳐 특세에서 반년 다와턱에 대비 아니 특세에서 하는 것인데 여러 봐. 시제도 단 가르쳐 특세를 해장 뭐뭐 넘버 말에 그 라르키 투 믹반네 마식베 추지스 마식베 추지 다니 칸기 파바 마릭베 라브릭다 대바 남지 유도 줄때 오니 대다게 라켄도 줄바 남 자고 세르다 신앙 경험을 남세요다 시대 나 경험을 가지고다 kenger바 시당 경험을 남 신앙 경험은 NP게 마릭베 라브릭이 투 믹바니 단 얘가란도 마릭베 라브릭이 투 세야티 가서 동이 마도베 소수 주 남게 신앙기 주 간데 신앙 비나야 아니 티 거라 마리베 라브릭이 그 레바르부터 효도 요베 있다 대투 랑운도 좀 나인 거야래 어디 랑운도 좀 나인 거래 예송으래 마리베 라브릭이 투 믹바니 어디 다티 마식베 투지 단 모습도 또 바테게 티 최전디 동시 최전디 마식베 투지 다니 간게 이네 팍바세야 지도 와 팍바세야 돼 팔람랑라이 깝깝라 팍바스진 주고 아래 팔람데 준대지 가사 될라이 팍바스진 또 될은 주고 아래 파바 라브릭 때 대대요 아래 팍바세도 동이 모습도 또 그게 애니티데 팍바스는데 마리베 라브릭 때 대원 남지 유디 줄때 다 동이 동제 들이 알아봐 동이 뭐 유든 줄때 뭐 티니 대다게 라신 두 남버 자고 제당 다 동이 쓰기 매로 타고라 해도가다 동이 쓰기 매로 대다지 팍베 가사 남기 NP게 마릭베 라브릭다 대반 남지 유도 줄어봐 뭐니 되니 관계 라신도 잡에 라신 타둑 다지네 마라신 타둑 나도 망고 용배 마라신 타둑세야 자고야 찍디 뭐 내루를 자고야 양찍 찍디게 라신 말베 매 타와 매 타와 매 라신 슈 NP게 가르도거다 어야다 미 라신세야 라신 전도 라신 타둑도 말이스 그래 그때 동이 박배 남자 이시 마르게 라브릭다 제베 뭐니 라신도 똑같이 NP게 디라 슈 남지 디 라신 타둑도 레세네
So at the bottom of page 200, we have a quote from great Indian master Chandrakirti's work called Clear Words. Tibetan name is Siksal, literally means clear words. And so this quote substantiates the point that has been made earlier. And as Khensur Rinpoche has explained, what that quote tells us is this, that we, the ordinary childlike sentient beings, for us, everything that exists, because we can categorize everything that exists into external phenomena and internal phenomena, right? Everything that exists appear to us as if they exist intrinsically. Why? Because we have this ignorance in our mind. And this ignorance, it dilutes or it contaminates our perception of things. Even though things don't exist intrinsically, because of ignorance influence, that we see them as if they exist intrinsically. So that is our experience, Whereas transcendental beings, or the Aryas, we call Pakpa, okay, their experience is just completely different, okay? And the Aryas, or the transcendental beings, are those who have acquired direct insight into emptiness as it is. Okay? So for that mind of Aryas seeing emptiness directly or non-conceptually, there is no intrinsic reality. There is no intrinsic appearances. So they see emptiness as it is. So when we say that emptiness is the ultimate nature of phenomena, or the ultimate reality, we posit it from their perception and realization point of view, not from our point of view, okay? Because we didn't get it, So as we had quite a lot of discussions about one of the terms in Tibetan called Rangshin, is the nature, and whether phenomena have nature or don't have a nature like that, And one way the nature could be understood as a conventional nature of things. Like, for example, fire, its conventional nature is hot, and the conventional nature of water is the wet, that makes everything, wet. But we are not talking about that kind of nature in this point. We are talking about ultimate nature, paramartha, you see. We call it Rangshin Tarduk, the final nature, Okay, so that always goes back to emptiness, and that emptiness is posited from the perception and the realizations of the Aryas of the transcendental beings, because they see what it is without the veil, because we are confused by ignorance. No.
No. Dakpa. Ranshin Tedaki Ranshin, you to Kurba, when you tag like it, he done about. Mobuna Ranshin to use Kurba, Java Meba Tayans, Java Demba Tayang, and investigated. Mainki, Java Meba, Tayan Jian. Maimba Niti, Mobo Meba something, Mobo Nibich, Mobo maybe Cherry, Mobo Ranshin to you, but Maino, Tati, 6 days, she had talked with the Just a mobile number, Silang mobile number, Ranshin to Kuribas, that don't make Java. Ranking only Java in there, you are Maris, Javati, you are Maris. Kaji Kenny, Titan, the Matis, one day comes to Kaji Kenny, Silang mobile and Kenny, Java ready, Rashi to make Java, you are Maris, the Matis. Oh, the Jianless, Maimba Niti, mobile maybe some Yimbe, only maybe. Rashi to maybe Rashi to maybe in Tango, the Mayang Mobosea, the Koyama, good to her. Kajale, Kapka Mobosea, Tapingola, Military, Mobosea, and Yanchi, Chanango, Mobosea, and the Mobo Tati, Chike, Chinichiri, Kawaki, Jajari. Moni maybe a Mobo Rashi to Yuba, and Pierre Rashi, dripping Moboti, Tawani. You are my no, he is so that. That can't I send him around to get. Shenag over numb the NPH. Around to Lolly now, do what I need to get. Now do sometimes shaggy, Peginal, sugar. Ometawa telepathy, now don't soon the shaggy. Can it shaggy, Senna? NPH. Rangon it to about 9, Rangon it to about 30. Sempeke, Loyun get Kansa Chixi. Yang Kansa Chigla, Rangi to but Naya, Rashi to but Rangu to but Naya, Terry in PH, Samba Mengi, Kansanda with Chixi. Diane Kansa Chigla in PH, Rangu to but Naya Nangi Mare, Sinang Chunam. So Shunam Rangu to but Naya Nangi Mare. Minna in that is now the Shamaya Mengi, Kansa Sum to Shaguares.
So at the bottom of page 200, the statement is a little kind of cryptic, and this is, I think, primarily because the Tibetan term ngöbo, which literally means, function or a thing, but again, it could mean many different things. Sometimes we use the term ngöbo, a thing, to refer to what's called the object of negation, intrinsic nature. Sometimes we use the word thing just to mean conventional things, that exist. So that's why sometimes, those terminology, what does it mean in a particular context? That's what a lot of those, dialogue goes between back and forth. So anyway, at the bottom of the page 200, the statement Khensur explained is according to the essentialist, because they posit that there is intrinsic reality, right? So which means then there should be intrinsic production of things, okay? And so now from our perspective, because intrinsic reality is a fabrication, doesn't exist, so there is no such thing as intrinsic production of things. Right? Things are produced, but not intrinsically. As Khensur quoted from his memory, the statement from the sutra, that which has arisen from conditions, has not been produced in that way. In other words, if something has been produced by causes and conditions, then it could not have been produced intrinsically. So intrinsic production is not feasible. Okay, that's stated in the sutra. And so Khensur says that maybe it's useful us to take into account these three types of individuals, if you will, presented in the text, with different experiences with regard to emptiness and appearances. One is there are individuals, who, who receive appearances of intrinsic reality, then who also cling to that reality. In other words, there are individuals for whom things appear intrinsically existent, and then they believe that is so. Okay, so this is one type of individuals, as we can say. Then there are second maybe category of individuals, if you will, for whom things may appear intrinsically existent, but they know that things don't exist in that way. So they do not grasp at. They have the appearances of intrinsic reality, but they do not grasp at intrinsic reality. Second category of individuals or people, if you will. Then there's the third category of individuals or people for whom neither do the things appear intrinsically existent, nor do they believe or grasp at intrinsic reality. Now, are you with me? So there are three different categories of individuals, and it's very important for us to know that, people exist at different levels. Okay. No.
다 나란도게 소소 나도 있더라. 나란서야 마시다 숨이 와서 휴타르 봐. 다 숨도 가데르잖아. 와테리스게였다. 간사텔라니 피게치 나란도게 피게 천하고보 나라힌 줘봤지 랑 문에 줘봤지 나지. 아니 피게 나 따르 셴바따부티 다 동니기 따와라. 게 로가 맞춘게 소주기기 동니기 따와게 땀지라 그래서 kansa committee of Mengen, that's you to look at Chanang Shunampi, the condition be Naya and Piggy wrong when it was now that the Koranki, yeah, Piggy Kansa Tindit, Kansa Telesigaries, Yamba you get that Tom Kansa Soto don't you get Tawa get Tom get 2 million to take it so you tell us it is. Kansa Rachel Tony Tawa tell it to some my say, come done, because Tony Toby Kansatilla. Tony Toshi Yate Mandel Yomo things or one young lifting it, he lifting it, New York. New York, any Tony Tony, I he lifting it, Tartu Barbachi, and Mari young lifted the Pang Mapan Kansat, Tony Toby. Tell us who saw Chunum Candice Nangre Savina, and if you get now some him, now I'm not thinking it. Somebody tell you, Maris. Somebody maybe careers, and they don't need to talk. Now, want some him, somebody, Maris. Or that is Tony being awesome to get with the new Tatanto, Tazak Tomata which I have in end. So we shouldn't mind. Now I can't, your Mari. Somebody can't, your Maris. Cheta any pigate. Now you're somebody belly out, you must need your one of the J. Higher. You must sing it, Konag Tube, Konag Magate, take onke. Me make the theatre me pigati, say Tada Lango Cheta Pimenta, then it give out a kind and the Machu in the Naya so now a day, you must can't serve it. You must can't Konang not do Nangi or the Tada Lango Chet on the tuition to do thing there, Tada Lango Cheta, Rammy the number Nangi or a day, Konang so in Tantati, to my important ku togi arta ku togi arta tana melonang chehi sungyeji ngandule chehi se ade ngatu tongbatri melonang te bati ti sungyedri oda ti sungyede chehi mai ba te ngatu ha gogor ba ta chehi ti dio mar tena hi juma ken ti korange anje nawa redi koran ki syamba yo mare o chebe inda tongni to hi npg che nyori mabang kitan so sorte o juma ken sorte res.
So I just presented to you, three, types of people. The first one is for whom things appear as intrinsically existent, and then they wholeheartedly believe in that reality and they grasp at that reality. Okay. Now, who are those, if we say? Well, these are, we consider individuals, beings, who usually are kind of clueless about emptiness, okay, who never cared about, what emptiness is, who have never been educated and never read anything about that. And so for such individuals, things appear as intrinsically existent, and then they believe in that kind of a reality. Okay, so that's fine. Then the second category I said is individuals or beings for whom things appear intrinsically existent, but they do not believe things exist that way. Okay, they know that. Okay, now this is a case where individuals who study emptiness really well, who have listened to the teachings, who have seriously contemplated the meaning of the teachings and meditated on that, so they have realized what emptiness is. Okay, and so for these individuals, things appear to them as intrinsically existent, but in their heart or the mind, they know things don't exist in that way. Okay, so they're able to differentiate between the appearance and the reality because of their education and their practice. And so this is akin to, sometimes in the Buddhist texts we use the example of a magician, right? A magician, use all kinds of tricks, to be able to entertain people. And so a magician himself or herself, by using tricks and pebbles, to conjure or to create, beautiful horses and elephants and beautiful ladies and, handsome men, he or she received appearances of all these magical shows he creates, but knows that, well, I'm the one who is making them up, right? So believes that these are not the real horses and elephants, these are not real, men and women, okay? So again, differentiate between the appearance and the reality. So just like that, those who have realized emptiness, emptiness, for them, things appear intrinsic existence, but they do not believe in that. The point we should remember is, as soon as we realize emptiness, it is not that we are free of our delusions, because, all of us have two types of what we call mental obscurations. One we simply call nunative, delusions or afflicted emotions, and the other we call sheative, the imprints of the delusions. Okay, and so when we realize emptiness, it doesn't remove all of our delusions. Okay, so we still have delusions. Things appear to us as intrinsically existent, but we know that they don't exist in that way. So that's an important thing to keep in mind. Then the third category of individuals for whom neither the things appear intrinsically existent, nor they believe things exist in that way. Now, this is the case where, somebody is completely free of all mental obscurations, just like our own historical teacher, Shakyamuni Buddha, right? So Buddhas neither receive, intrinsic appearances of things, nor do they believe that things exist in that way. So they are completely free of both appearances and the grasping in the particular case. No. So actually, one thing. So relating to the second category of individuals for whom things appear intrinsically existent but no, they don't exist in that way. This is like our experience of using the mirrors, isn't it? When we look in the mirror, we see the reflection of our face in the mirror. Okay, but that may appear as our real face, but we know our real face is here. It's not there, really. Right? That is just an image of our face, which looks like us exactly. But that is the appearance, but the face is on this side. So we know the difference between reflection of our face and our face. So just like that, those who have realized emptiness, they know things are appearing in one way, but they exist in another way. They know the disparity between appearance and reality.
다다 땀투고 봐 동이 땀투비 달라다 가사나 보지 그게 이제 람딩만 거 샤쇼고 요사리 랍든이나 아니 그게 이제 pendant tawatak be sungna hinki sosu chiwi tu na sendo sosu chiwi tu na tongba ni tu ne nandorado kawayanda yabdejo rabdo kawalyanju chime milen luji pakun dawan chirwa kaimba tela togbe sanje loyin sabon teni nyebara tembe tu ne teinde dallata tambe tonji tamba cha senta de sungya kese tongi ki tam thomani de ani pege je suju tu ne tongi ki tam thomata de ni pege de kawa hiraj kum thati je 내가 미래 될 동반이 그 땀 투바이 되니 그게 신은네 가와금 라도 가와 텔레 중에 아니 미키 치마투 못 땡긴다고 미키 치마라와 매 리지 바분 당스도 부신 당제 영왕 가서 제 제나 잡을 라부터 되게까지 되게다 리지 바부다 아 된데달라 아니 비게 조금 산지 가다가 여기 법 간다 나와 지르고 강이 봐 달라 조금 산지 로이 달라 아니 야 산제기 이렇게 누가推荐的 요리 달라 아니 비게 담배 단지 담바티바 땡쇼 좀 말이 야 다가 들레질을 뛴데 삼대 뒤지 용요 딘데시 맵이나야 동이 땀투비 깝라 딘데기 체주도 민답이 임바이나야 즉 랑게 라마스 마이라다 항랑주 라마코메 라마코메 깔리 만타와이나 아니 동이 똑베 르노 망고 사든 조롱이 베자레 인제 메지 동이 땀투게 된게 잘지 가와티데 좀 못땡겨서 소고 티데지 고아레베스나 티랍데리 티데스나 하르데 티마충이 난 알아도 라마 코마게 비게체 마치 시세야치 마치세야 마치 비게체 강 삽삼럽지 튜브튜브게 강 삽삼럽지 징게달라 근데 집에 가서 달라야 아니 비게지 동이 똑베게 아니 비게 로이 사본데 조롱 레스 와디데 강사디 냠제 멤버도 버지 마탄다 버지 세스무샤스 근데 인자 다 나란서 이제 데이터니 땀리 시가지 가게 가게 나도 돌링 러버 지가지 아니 비게지 가면 되기는 비게지 동반이 이제 땀트비 사본 쳐버지 인기지 임바다 무디 휴고 유스
So as I have just kind of highlighted, at least we find there are three broad categories of individuals, with different experiences. Now it's possible that there could be more variations than that. Okay, as Khensur Rinpoche very beautifully quoted the whole stanza from his memory that Chandrakriti has stated in the supplement to the Middle Way. The best kind of candidates, if I could use that word, for understanding emptiness, has certain qualities and the characteristics. That these are the individuals, even as very ordinary like anybody else, when they listen to talk or teaching on emptiness, they feel very happy. It brings them so much joy. And because this joy is not a faking out, but it's the real joy, the experience, then that joy also brings tears to their eyes. So there's the tears of joy, coming up. Okay? And so such individuals are considered as maybe the best candidates, for understanding emptiness. And it's said that such individuals really have, we can see the evidence of the seed of enlightenment in their minds. That so to whom the teaching or talk on emptiness should be given to. So in other words, they are ready, they are ripe to receive teachings on the ultimate reality, because of these internal experiences. Okay. And now if you ask the question like, okay, if we don't have that experience, so what does it mean? Now we don't have a seed of enlightenment, and so we are just kind of losers or something. He didn't say that, but then he just quoted another one. He said, but those who really are very sincere in following the words of their teachers or the gurus, maybe they don't have that kind of emotional experience about emptiness, but they're really very sincere in what they do and follow the words of the gurus. They too have the seeds of enlightenment in their mind, okay, which can be affected through the teaching of emptiness. So Khensur Rinpoche says that he, from his side, he feels that all of you have had so many opportunities to listen to teachings on emptiness, and we are trying to do something here again through discussion. So he feels that you from his point of view, you definitely have the seeds of enlightenment in your mind. Okay.
What is it? That in the market, Tantine Yanti Kagasungdua. He song so, the part of division. The Naya Kagasungdua. Kanda Dondom Tembe Temba Kajak, Tanila Sube, Tuba number 7, some La Minjuk Barra, Mosella Sokbatara. You look to below Madribe, you do any round to be 2 Cheber Kang, Tetra Yuber Nebane, Zamoton, Toge Tawa, Hang, Dujings, Tangarantu Yanti, they are in Bray. 제단 넘버 3 제베체 아니 피게 좀 된데 유승변 도대 건대생이 돈도你懂对可以让我这这让多少年的啦长东些这当你懂些这个你要了吧长东些的个是呢但弄的了东北人我是点别的了长东些的这点这个点就这个了长东的啊你懂更多东北人我是点别个你得了他的脑出的话你懂些个你懂东北人你懂下等我是点别个点就懂了当你懂到懂了你懂那几个多些工作点把做点这些的点没当到了你长东些啊你的对工作点把可能长东些点点这做些的点到这长东些多些是个了现在呢让路给你别这看上个些呀就当个些到底工作生意的你别你懂更多我是看啷个新不这个呀东一生意的肯定是下过了噻呢각자 지키게 거야 개요 말이 각자 지켜 대바 제니 때니 바가니 티 동만이 하고야 자요 말이 제 가리네 제 뭐들로 속바지 나도 유튜브 당신기 비에지 동만이 거라 뚜바데 제버리 뚜제 힘버리 양조 각자 바지 가세 제 지고야 자요 말이 거라 뚜제 거라 유튜브에 로지라 따와신 두비 인생생게当然当我们这个比大瓦开了东北你开了到底跟着你东跟导演都一不一样但是东人就录的的弄出去不来是的弄出去下送到个的大瓦丢个都是这个大瓦丢的这个大瓦的丢不的这个嘛的但能不俺说这要的但俺都拿到这主大下那主大写的就要嘛下嘛都都个要的大家那些给的看啥啥讲呢这让能被能给主大俺让就票给那个设备那样关键上哪话噻种这个你别的东西种就当的这个让东西啊这不是县东西啊这里叫呢大家接到了那县我都把这样啊东北人的大家接到的跟民族吧所以有的大家差完了没丢吧두 번 나와는 두 번은 개하고 세야죠 봐. 두 번 나와 가자째 또 말이 세야 된 개발 해선 송구여서 봐. 어디 송구여서 해서 다 최전에 보잖아. 나도 부반도 보셔야비나 군제 주노 왔어야 돼. 송초도 네 센도 특히 내도가 특히 나부터 하 내도가 가시 간다 돈 담배 땜박 각자 니 다니 세도 가사 다다니 초제 다니기 각자시라 봐 추다다 강사 다니 대니 들어봐 대니는 소별로 줘봐 탐제 넘버 제쯤지 적버려 라고 그래 제담긴 적버려 대면적 봐서 와셀라 속바 따라 인록제별 로 마트베 유드 인 라마트베 추지 쳐봐 당 대더라 여버려 네바니 삼모 통톡베 따와 임버 되징 어딘데 등게 강사지 도 송겨다 아 최전부터는 군지 지나와 두고 임바 대기 말다 망고 유지라 봐 강사 릭서서 미동인 줘다 에미 주다마와 희열이 샤마도게 동인시의 명다가 말은 돈이 대든 되니 강사 다음에 저거 알지 저거 일단 저로 맨날 때는 요된 게 차기 알았어
So now we are moving into a different point. It's on page 201, right on the top, where it says, some, in the parenthesis, Tibetans do not posit ultimate truth as the sheer elimination of the elaborations of the objects of negation, example, the two selves. So Khensur Rinpoche has given his commentary on that paragraph, right on the top of page 201. First, maybe I should tell you this, that different schools of thought, so they may take different standpoints with regard to what the realities are, and we can think in terms of non-Buddhist schools of thought, Buddhist schools of thought, even within Buddhism, right? At least we have identified 4 major schools of thoughts or the tenets, and each of them comes with a different, perspective on what ultimate reality is, what conventional reality is. So there are all these different, standpoints. And so one of the very important topics in the study of Buddhism is what called the differentiation between that which is definitive and that which is interpretable. The Tibetan term is tang nge. Nge means sure, certain, definite, right? Tang means means to explain, to interpret. So the tang nge, so differentiating between that which is definitive and that which is interpretable is a very difficult topic, and that is a very crucial topic to understand realities. So there are again different perspectives on how to do this, but a dominant perspective on this is literatures, Buddhist literatures, sutras and shastras, where they primarily and explicitly elucidate emptiness. These materials or the literatures are considered as definitive sutras or definitive what called literatures, because these literatures explicitly and primarily elucidate emptiness. And then there are other literatures which primarily and explicitly explain the conventional reality, and these are considered as interpretable literatures or tangden in Tibetan. And so one of the sutras called Dodik Kongtel, Unraveling Thought Sutra, which is a very, very important sutra, is considered as a definitive sutra on emptiness. So now there are those among Buddhists, now here it seems to be the references to among the Tibetan Buddhists, and there could be other Buddhists, somewhere who might hold the same position, that they accept Unraveling Thought Sutra, Dodik Kongtel, as a definitive sutra. That means it primarily and explicitly elucidates emptiness, as it is. They accept that. But then, what they posit is this, that there is no need to establish emptiness by way of refuting object of negation. They said, we don't need to make any effort to eliminate all those misconceptions, all the fabrications about emptiness. Emptiness is free of elaboration fabrications. Our mind can see it. We don't need to go through all the efforts to identify the object of negation and refute them. So they take that position. And so here, as you can see in the same paragraph, that so in terms of that assertion, they got it wrong. Asserting that it does exist in that way is the view that knows the profound. They also claim that it is a misstep with regard to the correct view to regard external and internal phenomena, the basis with regard to which living beings cling to the two selves as lacking intrinsic existence. So again here, I think all Buddhist schools of thought, they try to deal with the ultimate reality. Sometimes in the lower schools of Buddhist tenets of schools of thought, they may not use the term emptiness, but they use the term selflessness. So that's why oftentimes people talk about selflessness of a person and selflessness of phenomena. They may not use the term emptiness here. And so what they're saying is, whether it is the selflessness of a person or selflessness of phenomena, we do not need to establish these selflessnesses, by way of identifying and refuting the objects of negation. There's no need to do that. So that's where they got, get slightly off. They got it wrong. And as Khensur Rinpoche said, there was many, but in the Tibetan Buddhist circle, the tenets, a great Tibetan master called Chonangpa, Chonang Taranatha, who is even referred to as the omniscient Chonangpa. He's the one. I think so. His assertion, accords with that, where the Chonangpa talks about what we call the rangtong, emptiness of the self, and the emptiness of the other, xiantong. So he comes with a different philosophical standpoint about what emptiness is. So Chonangpa is a case in point here, who accepts Unraveling Thought Sutra as a definitive sutra, but then, he says that there is no need to refute objects of negation. No.
the doing start in the match, Hangmaterda, Peter and Gadget told me to go. Doing Simjaniam de Kana Tani to Hembe, he Tachanangi Chunam, Rahim Mebra Tokbani, Takorang to take Rahim Mebra Tokbani, do we or about Rahim Mebra Tokbani, Yata, Tavi, Kozara, and Doban, Tiba Ke Songra Tamje, Chiru de Jurba Indes, they Tata Remi to Sunga. Tinese Tawaten poverty at the any PH Rahinji to Veki Karatuta. Shonam Rahinji any pitu to Matuti Hitala Tani Titing, Tawaten Patan the Remi do Sunga Tarava, Tawaten Patan the Remi do Yanta with Tawan Dubane. Yanta with Tawan Dubane, the Tipachijum Tamjele. Gobuluki in PH, Lulu so big, Tipachijum, Dan Gobuludan, Tijambarava, Inayata, Tony get Tawato, Tipachijum Chebrake, Omaravata, Toko, Yorvata, Kovali Toginta, Timmy and Tomani Toko, Yorva, Yeta Tipachijum Tamjaki, any PH, Yanta Vetavi, Kotam Dubani, Tipachijum, Tamjaki. Tamjel Chirud Kubari, Site Tada Remindus, Tada to Mindu. Chitanga was Rami, Tawatan, Pache, Redi, Yenati, Cosacia, the Nosalajago, Lam, dead noisat, no dutiful to push us. The song to Charan Sabin Yuchirava, Cosan Dubate. Sabienta, any piety, Tindes in Denity, Tawatel poverty, any pay, Tipachijum, Tanjaki, but Chirud Kubari, has pay Tada Red to Minduti. Get a no thunder with it, no one which you ask here. Yet on the Chatan Catalubon Lutu look the Shamlene, Chirutula, he were coming to say in Banga to Kazin to Bachel saying, but Gombolutu, Gitavi, Chiru, Kurbayimta, that's the Asiba call to the Tab Mendusi, Temperava, this only to get out, the Tibachum Tabjaki, NPH, Chiru to Kurbayin, des. There are. In this character, that name was Hagi and Rabushabina. Simje Tamji Kora Chongani Simje Tamji Kora Chong Tawa Dadun de Batoba Gubani, De Las Simje Tamji Kora Tugre, Kora Tuyala Alika Nandukin Zimba Nandukin Nanga Shukin Zinte Tatu Tubati, dog race in a Koranke Ketalangi or is. Todan the Timbuki Tony talent Pabindu. No due to Mason, simply Mato Chila, Savachana Koranke, Sinjetan, you call it to go to take Tuvala, Nazuki, Shinrapatia, Tatun, but the dog race in the Dugris, the Koran Dugris. What is it?
So the second paragraph from the top on page 201, which reads, these assertions stand outside the sphere of all the scriptures, Hinayana and Mahayana, and so on. And so Khensur Rinpoche explains that in both yanas, or the vehicles of Buddhism, whether it is the Theravada yan or whether it's the Mahayana, okay, all Buddhists agree that in order to attain nirvana, freedom from samsara cyclical existence, one must realize emptiness. Okay, so that's kind of unanimous agreement on that. Okay, but then in terms of presenting that emptiness, we may find different viewpoints, as we have seen. And so the earlier assertions, where they said that emptiness is free of all the fabrications, and you really don't need to establish it by identifying the object of negation, and then in refuting it, it got led slightly off track, okay, in terms of making that assertion, because that does not agree with all of the things said in both the Theravadan literatures and the Mahayana literatures. So in the Mahayana, of course, we certainly follow the way of great Arya Nagarjuna, right? And as Khensur Rinpoche quoted again from his memory, which he did some time ago, where it is really clearly stated that if we fall outside the system of Nagarjuna's presentation of emptiness, then we will not find any other way to understand emptiness and find nirvana. Okay, so that's the Mahayana's take on it. And the interesting thing here is, they agree that grasping at self or the conception of self is the root cause of all suffering in samsara, and it needs to be uprooted. Okay, but then how should we do that? That's where their explanation got a little bit off track. They said, what? Well, emptiness itself is free of all fabrications, and our mind can see it as it is, and we really don't need to identify the object of negations. We don't need to refute them. This is where they got a little, off the track. No.
어, 세단 뒤에 다른 게 되게 다가라리 되게 깨져 되버리. 너라 대다도 소위 시 라신 메버 똑바테 메독 바라 다도 되게 라신이 두번째 멘데 맞디 바 메독 바라 대단 재미지네. 각자 똥이 있는데 각자 대각이 봐 저거 같은 저 마저 버치네 대단 재미지네 피게지 초신시 담바라 유버디 똑바라 다든 좀 봐, 도바른 너바 너베처럼 아tende게 가자디 발다다 가투민도 템멤베 예케제 체네 담바 요고도 송고이 말에. 빼나 애니피게지 뺀다고 샤비나 세기도 단디 코란 뺀다 샤비나. 샤저스 두 메신도 때 요바라 송네 딱데 따데 동에 딱베 동에 주르베 동에 또바 샤저스 두 중세 때 마두보 냠도 송에 딘딘때 메독기 그런게 해봤자도 샤조를 뒤인다고지 요버지기 따대버 되기 뒤인다고지나 대인이 비게 뒤어 말이 대 뒤민독시에 되는 해봤다는 맞자버지 가진가 냐망냐망 깨지 기업이 임바 란진티 북티네 통신단은 랑제메지 독세데 뒤진지 빠빠하세요 임바 샤조를 뒤어 말을 송게 센지 깨지티 도그 말이 송게다 세상로지 샤조를 뒤어버다 될때 샤조를 뒤어 말했지 라구테베 제랑기 뒤 유베시나데 도둑 말이 있어요. 아체당로 송아 가리 안에 가리라고 그랬어요. 누조네 신동 요도 냠도 식다 아니 둔딘다 동에 때 도관 요로 시사라 왔다 아니 비게서 제발 잡아다 제발 찌야 메낭고 그래 다티 깨졌지 겐다 시비시에서 샤조를 둘다 되디 샤조기 뒤어 말이 돼 뒤어 말이 씨 말아봐시 샤조 뒤이 가르쳐 그랬다 요 말에서 밖에 티시에 둔딩클로도 마도 버체네 아니 가르쳐서 노조는 행동 유도 세네 깨지 티시에 대비나 안 뒤둔딩클로 열다 될 딱비 동에서 가르쳐 그랬다 딱비 동에도 봐 세버 똑바로 근데 그때 제바르지 않는 거 어때? 같이 갈로 뺀다고지 근데 잡았다. 제바르게 민두 송거했다. 간제 더 도도도 갈때 하나 가자 된도 바까네. 가자데 까비 동반이들 민족 봐라. 가자네 동반이들 가자 뚜리에 인피 가자티 가서 까발 뜨고 말이 되는 저버티 안 되게 민두 송거했다.
So Khensur is still explaining that paragraph 2 on page 201. And so those who make such assertions, they do agree that grasping at self or the conception of self is the root cause of samsara. It needs to be uprooted. Okay? But the way to do that is a little different. What they say is that we really do not have to identify object of negation and then refute it in relation to whatever the phenomenon is. Okay, we don't need to do that because emptiness is free of fabrications, And so, so this is where, their approach does not work in terms of counteracting grasping at self. Now, the example given here is, to illustrate this point, is let's say, someone really is very scared of a snake, okay, and so he believes that there is snake in the east, that eastern direction, right? So he's just freaking out. Okay. So what seems to be a reasonable thing to help alleviate his fear is to tell this person, you think that there is a snake in the east, but there is no snake there, right? And that should help him to overcome his fear. But instead of saying that, you said, what? Well, no, that doesn't help him to get rid of the snake fear. what you should tell me is that, you know what, hey, think about the tree in the west. How about that? Okay. So how does that, pointing out a tree in the west, could help this guy who's freaking out about snake, to get rid of that fear? Because he's scared of a snake in the east, not anything else, So it's as kind of a, how to say, paradoxical as that, So that's the illustration given.
어떻게 대단나 서바다 대단나 다 될 손도 바다겠네 단대비 전라와 대 장릉도 빵네 코바라친 주 그거 탐제제 자와 마르베 조다 수인진베 탑시 탑 예베 통지 아니 비게지 송랍 당아 다 라니 코발리아 되 여기도는 되게 다 코발리아 되지 베지 집에 배 모르지야 땡땡 투고 이나서요 다 델릭스도 발 배 모르지 김지야 모르지야 중년 누구도나 아니 비게지 단대비 다다탄데 초남 기사들 깨져 된데 생gen데 바장른도 돌이고 어선 거래 깨져 때 마시 야 코발리아 주인 누구도는 깨져 때 마시 장른도 바네 대송도가 단대비 장른도 돈에 코와 징지기 규티 가르쳐 그러잖아 그바꾼지 따와 마릭버테 모디쇼스 마릭버테 모 진베 마세 진당데 이니피게 수인진 그래 진당데 매버지 그래 나도 나와다 샴바니기 날 샴바티 근데 매버서 그래 그래다 수인진베 탑 예베 돈지 대 간대지를 서 그러잖아 좀 된 얘기 마송 되는 공부를 다 잡으셔서 그 땡을 파비 니 돈지 송럽게 돈들 지선 당내 때 땡을 파고도 송도가 돼 수인진베 탑니 니 돈지 송랍이라고 탄동지 말이 니 돈을 땡고 그래 대동현도 정말 메롱와라 네버 띵 속버 네버 띵에 속버 제베 리베소 야체와 세버라 세베 파벌루도 지숑라 땡네 시베자도 파루도 놓고 그래 다음 고블루도 yap세기 숑라 땡네 이 비게지 가르쳐 올다 땡 속반라버지 바제브라 제네르도 오마르도 졸로서 그 세브라 이니피게 자체와다 세베 안 고블루로 yap세기 송을 땡네 세베 자도 파루도 로베 에네 가르쳐 그러다 세베 자도 파루도 로베 지히세르 어디바도 다 랍자 정교하다 다데 믹세기데 가장 그자 민두 랍잔라버지 마디데 정교하레스.
So the second paragraph from the bottom on page 201, so basically Rinpoche is giving us advice, what is the right approach to emptiness. And so as Khensur Rinpoche explained, that those who aspire for freedom from samsara or cyclical existence and who are really interested to understand emptiness as it is, right? Who wants to begin, oh happy day, that's what he said really. He really wants to start oh happy day. Now, it is advisable that we keep distance from those assertions, including the great master Chonangpa's, viewpoints, and stay away from those assertions. And so instead, what we should realize is that it's very essential for us to identify our ignorant grasping at self, because that is the root, delusion. Not only that we identify this ignorance, but we should check with how this ignorance, grasp at things to exist. Okay, we have to, study its mode of apprehending and especially clinging to, right, the intrinsic reality of things. So it would be very wise for us if we follow, what is explained, of course, originally by Shakyamuni Buddha as our teacher, and then illustrated by the great masters like Arya Nagarjuna and Arya Deva and a whole line of great masters in the definitive literatures, Buddhist, right? And in order to realize emptiness, understand, we should not rely upon so much the interpretable literatures. We should rely more on the definitive sutras and literatures where emptiness is primarily explained and explicitly presented. And for example, Arya Nagarjuna has really written these 6 wonderful treatises. We usually call it the 6 works of the Nagarjuna, right? So we should rely upon those treatises.
오, 됐어. 가자 로바 똑바 센두게.
너도.
가자라 로바 똑바 목바 대단히 메타와니베 고사주베 야라투 내 체와 임베 저디 셰바이노 다 제르무시 숨겨라. 고사주세야 돼. 탄다데지 가자 드네지 가자 너도 정사 대마리 된데 센상 아주 이네마 이제 가자 찹총아 샤바디 현다지게 가자 찹총아 샤바 되네마 촌이 되니 베지 망고지 셔야 돼 또로부터 랑룩이 각자디 투 뭐심베 시드파 현다게 되파 셰베리 근데 말했지 자영한 남대나 또 따나 이바 하고 양다 임바 하고 말했어 따나데 양다 임베 고사죄베게 야라도 땜바레신 송용아 대나신 메이네 다 메니 좀 지어봐이나 메 도구라버지 총소나 메치부터 야가 임바도 또 두고 왔다 미니기날 메치도 자라버지 가면데 또 자르나 다 메치부터 될 때데 야가 임바지 또 두고 왔다 또 두고 왔다 대나신게 아니 그게 제르모체게 되네 마 탑종한테 배 남보체네 배 뜨데 저르서도 개버체는 마셔야 돼. 아니 그게지 또는데 랑록게 아니 그게지 따와데 어메 따와데 아니 그게지 줄이 제와 함 니베게 양라도 송바 인세네 제버리 다디 현재 디제버리 나란도 그 사제 당보 가자 찹총아 각바서야 돼 살아리 따랑록게 손바리도와 손바랑록게 가장 고소하세야 달라 마트디스타 드리마 해용 그러봐 제빈다든 드린 다가티스 네 야도 바지 송렌라 송렌서 마치 지랑도 지 도롱다 유비나 나로시스 난 다가 샤기스
So at the bottom of page 201 it reads, to avoid missteps in reaching the Madhyamika view, it is most crucial to refute wrong ideas about the object of negation. For that reason, I have given an extended explanation. So Khensur Rinpoche has said that, we started off with this one major outline called not enough, right? That one has not adequately identified object of negation. And then we talked about so many endlessly about different viewpoints, right? Try to refute them, try to understand them. Now, all of these things are really, done as a way of really orienting us, preparing us to understand, what is the object of negation from one's own standpoint. Okay, the idea here is when we understand what are the wrong views, what are the misconceptions, misunderstanding, then that will help us to identify and understand what is right view or the right understanding, isn't it? And so it's for that reason we talked about so many different positions, assertions, and try to refute them, and all of that is a part of that preparation. And the example Khensur is given is like, say, if we have pretty good ideas about who the bad guys are, then that will help us to understand who the good guys are, isn't it? And if we are clueless about the bad guys, then it's really hard to talk about the good guys because, what is it? So in the same way, if we understand what are what we call the wrong assertions, the misunderstandings, the misconceptions, then it will help us to understand the right way. Okay? And that's why Rinpoche said, I have taken a lot of effort to be able to go into details, different positions and assertions, and try to refute them. So that completes not enough section on identifying object negation. So the next one, it begins with the actual object to be negated. So that's where one's own perspective, standpoint, right? Where do you stand, right? If you ask that question, so we will begin that. So it's a good part to stop there today, and we welcome your questions, your observations, we can do discussion. So, and Annie got the mic there. Yeah.
Morning.
Yeah.
I kind of don't really know how to ask this question,
Yeah,
but
sure. No, that's
so with the absolute realization of emptiness, if you can't see it through language or through mental images,
right.
but you still have to perceive it or experience it or something like that, like how
Okay.
or
That's a very good question, actually. Yeah. Quran ke kandi shwe de dire da Khensur Rinpoche khar shure da tongi seng de tangbo thö samlo je sumro wa tongi le ya thö ba che ane samba je gom du che bi na ko thö jung sam jung ge wang ji tongi tunji su ji to go yo wa re de da dang da ko tunji de de ye za ko ta ka sa da di ka sa da dang de dir wa Khensur Rinpoche da mu thö ni chen ngu sum de to go re sumro wa che da tongi di 아니 가르쳐 얼마나 간저게 다 디르와 그거랑 디스고도 얼마나 식을 때는 셰벤 동이디 다 똑베기 동이 셰된 걸 찾도 거와 아니 다가는 시 든지기 전또 다 무슨도 가르쳐도 그래서 그러다 무슨 똑다셔 와 동이 라운 다 든지 똑다다 하고 그거 다다다 지 똑바다 망고 스탠디 거와 다 무슨도 또스디 아니 배 식다 다다 강을 마든 배제는 거 무슨 전자를 주도 거와
라리
이 간대를 또 그래서 다
리 tikta kale matin basi ti tikta ka thonda kale ya matin basi ke le par lobal thi pe jabe ba komjung ni wa thon de ke le par lobal tik lai tu ko mari kha ke tu ite ngosum de to se ta lo de hi lai sang ri sim ba lo de hi ta ya sang bo che ani tong ban ni sing de pige che nga tu chu na le chul luk ba ina ani gal an de luk jabe chu de re de 이 같은 뉴제네 용의 추드레스네 야와치 두기 말아와 된나 신게 아니 똥반이 다 로니부터 비게지 가르쳐 그렇다 나도 봐 세생이 뭔데 가르쳐 그렇다 니스 매번 잡으지 비게 무슨도 또 해야 되고 된대 뒤갑라 아니 비게 소소 나야 땅지 두바 대책도 두바 탐제도 대책도 두제리 고란게 비게 소소 땅 각자한테 들렸다 가가 솔로 속바 된대 맨날 왔잖아 아니 별라 그베잖아 별라 냠샤 이해스 그래. 밥에 냠샤 이해스 그래. 뒤에 뭐는 아니 당 무슨도 어다 무슨도 또 그러 봐. 제때 다 출리 휴자 비게 저 통진로부터 된데도 만대 봐. 코로나기 비게 가르쳐 그러다. 내일 탁 받아버대 봐. 아직 랑게 로티 올려야지 그까지 그렇다. 뭔데 주부들 쓰기래. 저와다.
다 마삼 좀 해주신 되고 그러다
리다 마삼 주미 가르쳐 그러. 니 코로나기 가르쳐 그러다. 다야 우리 해행이 믿어가.
No. Says, this is the big challenge, because we have to look at it from the experiential point of view. As soon as we start to talk about it, we get caught up with the use of the language and everything else here. And according to the explanation in the text is that, once you realize emptiness non-conceptually, directly, what happens is it's as if emptiness and your perception of the mind, they are fused together, right? There's no duality at all. There's no distinction, and that kind of experience. And the example given is if you have two water bottles, so if you mix the water, then later somebody says, okay, now I don't want my water to be in your water, just get me back. We can't. It's the two mixed, the water is just gone, right, completely. So just like that experience, there is no duality. Of course, forget about even the appearance of object of negation. There is no appearance of any conventional reality. It just, your mind is one with emptiness, just completely matched. It's kind of hard to talk about. That's why in the Buddhist literature they talk about, it is beyond terms and concepts and thoughts, isn't it? Once you experience it exactly, it's very hard to put in the words. As soon as you put in the words, it becomes dualistic, That's why it's called masam jeme. I want to talk about it, but I can't. It is expressionless, beyond expression,
So it's the experience.
Yeah, it's the experience, the subjective experience of it, yeah. And that's why I think, the one terminology we use is the nyamsha yishe, wisdom in the state of meditative equipoise and emptiness, right? The transcendental beings, the Aryas, once they enter into that meditative state where the mind is one with the emptiness, we can't talk about who is Arya, whose mind, it's just, one-to-one, that kind of experience. Yeah. Okay, next. Yeah.
first of all, it's a follow-up to his question. Nowhere in the text does it say that the mind and I've heard that expression, of course, the mind and emptiness merge. But here, in many places, it says that the mind has an emptiness is its object, which implies that there is still dualism. So everywhere, nowhere does it say. I know that we. Okay.
That's
all right. So that's something. And the other one is about the Unraveling Thought Sutra.
Right.
I thought it was a sutra of the third turning of the wheel of Dharma, and as such it should be presenting a Chittamatra position, and yet it was said that it was a definitive sutra.
Okay.
How could that be?
Okay.
And these people, the Junangpas, are they Chittamatrans?
Okay.
All right. Thank you.
Quran Gandhi should do it. Gasore, Tanabana, Yamsha Yishin when it's every and Chula Chushabas should do Karasogorata. Did what Tony Wisdom thought there were. In a that the one on the day said, you're going to Tony to use it, and the tongue of Lord uses the Galco needs to get a singer outside the Gorwa. Don't need the past the US or don't use the Euro, and they don't use let you got a Shuma to Ninang, Ni Madakis are sharing with the one. How do you call outside Cabos? The Koran to us all the days, I can say. Tanda Dode Conde or one. Dode Conde. Dode Conde, the Colosumbe of Sumo Marves or what?
Oh, really?
Or what? Sidu Kala and Tanda Dode Conde di Taki, the Nedung to the Scana in Ba. Sidu Kala and Dode Conde, the Colosumba, and they got Samsung any look thank you, Marves, or what? Samsung look thank you, Yabina, and it under Chona, Taranada Yorova, and Samsung look in each other, a country less alone. No.
Really, so the Conde Carsovata. That's yes, I say, I was shaking into Tantati Trangi here, and Tote Condating it on but Kelani, Tombani in Joe looked any piggy. Kajacheval, Matu Para, drove around while doing in Gava or Seati, Tati, zone of the Tingo Sungudoa. They are tending Sonabi here, but the Matami, Tingo Sungudoa. Certain in the Tote Conde, any piggy. The Tantati looked the Tenju look at Ina in that, Mana in that country, Siabati Tagate, negative. Because they aren't the Conde any piggy, sometimes they have none to the Conde Tigata, Theravada, Colos Colosamaji.
No.
Any piggy Cartogata. You don't say it.
Colosumbe of Suma in a Sanzabagi and shooting your Marves.
Oh, some temptation, thank you.
Shooting you when a Chonatara, another Sanzaba looks in each other of Cares or that.
Charantala, not the thought to do the Koran, Tenju be him, but which is Nessachen, Hitachi, Hakomason. Hakomason, the Nare something of the Chevishun, Chevin, Tamashana Chevina, Tenju is Tawan, which is Kellen, which is Havi used. Yenayata, Kadekadi, Shabati, Pipe, Yabi, Yante. Tenju be here with Kabla Simson be Tawata, Ranju be Tawata, the Gadi the Heba here to take the Yoris. Hung say at the landing around to get the Tete, Ranjungi, my say at Yoris. Ranjungi, my say at the Deg Ranju, so by Yori, the Tepe, Tati, Saran Sakuran, Simson by Yanga, Kazara, to don't opportunity, Simson by Yanga, Omatinju and Shirak, Akomasons. 세상 아래 탈 때 엄마 따와디 엄마 텐주에 따와리 시샤지는 마 시에되지 통구도
the Khensur Dode Conde, the Neding Dore Swan, the Tenjuba looks and Neding Dore, Munzi course more away.
Ah, really?
No, that the Colosumbe Gablia, this is the call the Sensaba Shady, Yandin, Scissors your way.
Colosumbe, Simtambe, Colotangoniti, any pig tando to Dotera. Now, somebody any pig in long Totoa. Kundarang Tini Matuji, and to tend to rank Tini to 10 shots. Take that as negative, and Simta because it is here. Yeah, tell you look, German, not it don't you don't say at the Tashi him by him, but the Mahimbal, Madiwa said. Juja got thing to Juja. Juja Tombani, Tanjato, and tanking it later and begin. You don't know. Juja Kundo, but Tajato, and Tandong dots in Tidekia, Simtambe Tangin Jordan, then you do Kakachabris.
The Kundarang singing Marushi, Shavan, the Rang singing was soon to a central lose it was Samsamba Luna Tavena, than the Dode Conde, the Nedun Dotcha.
La
then the central balloon tebina. Kunda rang change the mandu sins what she want to do rang change do but temper sum what do
that's when you don't
have many seven in each other.
you don't be charged with what sim tam korang tana korang changi jo tang tana ni don't charge with what
No. Because I will just make sure that I don't mess with this one. Khensur Rinpoche says that even from Chitta Martin's point of view, this Unraveling Thought Sutra, which is taught during the third wheel of the Turn of the Dharma, they considered it as a definitive sutra. Now, of course, we have to keep in mind that different schools of thought have different definitions of what is definitive, what is interpretable. Because according to Chitta Martin, this is a definitive sutra. Why? Because imputed phenomena are established as non-intrinsically existent, whereas thoroughly established phenomena and other dependent phenomena are intrinsic. So according to Chitta Martin, this works for us. This is definitive. Okay, so they explain that. Now, whether Jonataranatha is Chitta Martin or Prasangika, Khensur says, I can't say for sure, but his understanding is that Jonataranatha's, his philosophy presentation is, he claims to be Madhyamik, the Prasangika Madhyamikan philosophy. So he got a little way off track, but not as Chitta Martin. Yeah. Anybody else? Okay, we'll stop there today then. I think. So, thank you for your active participation and whatever I have shared today. So, please try to put it into your contemplation and practice. I'll do the prayers in Tibetan first and then English and Vietnamese. Lamando gombo jin jambe yang la cha de lo kange lo de tin ye tin de yin da nam da ra se be chin ye je ne je to le ban de kan da se be sa ra me se dong ye ge se do zo kon la bo je ta se yan la to je yang de da je do tin mo nya lo le je cha do de je ma de me se dong ye no go chen ye jun de de nan do ne da je sa ju da ze yuan de pen do je se tu yu gu ju da jun yin jen de da lo mo se jan de yang la o ma ra ba da na He who has the intuitive wisdom that disperses the clouds of the two obscuration, like the sun shedding a glorious light that is certainly pure. He who understands all meanings whatsoever of perfect realization, from whose heart emerges the lotus holding the books of the perfection of wisdom. Those who live in samsara are the prisoners of ignorance, afflicted by the darkness of suffering. Looking after all sentient beings with compassion, like a mother looking after an only child, you have a melodious voice of 60 tones. Roaring like a dragon, you wake people from the sleep of conflicting emotion, freeing one from the iron shackles of karma, dispelling the darkness of their ignorance. Thus you wield the sword which cuts down the shoots of suffering. Primordially pure, having reached the 10th Bodhisattva level, the perfect body of highest quality, the foremost son of the Buddha, adorned with 112 ornaments, major and minor physical perfections of a Buddha, I bow down to you, Manjushri. Please dispel the darkness of my mind. Amarabhasana Di. I beseech you with the loving kindness of your omniscient light ray to completely dispel the dark ignorance of my mind, to understand the teaching of Buddha, the elucidating O peerless Savior and Supreme Teacher, Shuddhodana's son, O the 17 masters and adepts, Nagarjuna and Asanga and so on, O Dibamkar as well as Sovereign Father Tsongkhapa, gloriously appeared here to do auspiciousness. On the great path leading to the heart of enlightenment, you have traversed by means of the perfect threefold discipline, and have enhanced ever higher the realizations of the enlightened qualities. O glorious Guru, we offer our supplications at your feet. Pray return gloriously to propagate the teaching of love song by saying well the sash of monastic disciplinary precepts and generating the altruistic intention to all beings. Engage in the tantric yogas of the two stages. Think of the unbearable pain of the sentient being who are enveloped in the forces of 5 degeneration, and to open wide the lotus grove of the Buddha's teaching. May your reincarnation appear soon as a source of merit for us. Namo. Namo Mubbe Jato Namo Dibamkara Chungsongka Ba Dongfung Tofu Kong Lam Dong Cho Hetan Hento Batai Fugui Tentang Dalo Tukchi Chendam Kendam Dakpa Mede Jesu Dongem Tuktu Batang Golo Rolai Papu Babang Tuve Bodhi Henchang Dongsu Venkon Tutsung Dongsu Bosam Lele Chomon Cholai Panchum Tuga Baba Lobs Bangsu Dachak Daiko Niming Tonto Turin Rolai Kotam Tubi Dagon Gaita Gusan Pinchung Henti Gulai Thông bi bởi phụ cháu đời của nguyện mãn lục nữ túc dù đe giống mười ba ngày vĩnh sinh cả lời Phật thái sư mong cháu sang ngày sang tuấn biển phương tùng ghê vô địa Senjo Rinpoche Ma Je Ba Na Je Jo Je Ye Wa Nyam Ba Me Ba Yang Gong Ne Gong Ai Jo Tong Yin Da Wa Rinpoche Ma Je Ba Na Je Jo Je Ye Wa Nyam Ba Me Ba Yang Gong Ne Gong Do Be Ba Jo Za Je Be Je Jo Je Me Do Zhang Ri Ra Lin Jie Nian De Yin Ban De Sang Jie Xin Du Min De Wei Wa Ye Ru Ge Nan Da Xin La Zhe Ba Yi Zhu Kan Ri Ra Wei Guo Wei Xin Gang De Ben Dan De Wa Ma Lu Zhong Wei Xian Re Zi Wang Din Zin Ya Zhou Yi Xia Wei Si Dian Ba Du Dian Yu Ji Yi Da Man Gu Ru Ra Na Man Dian Lao Ni Yan Do